Innocuous words like rubbish and faction are ruled unparliamentary. And it's getting worse by the day, colleagues. Just last week in this House, the Leader of the Opposition, a constitutionally recognized position, was prevented from referring to Mr. Zuma as, I quote, accused number one. This despite the fact that the Gauteng High Court had ruled, and I quote, that the decision of the first respondent in 2009 to discontinue prosecution is reviewed and set aside, and further at 93 of that judgment that, quote, Mr. Zuma should face the charges as outlined in the indictment. The Honourable Judge was, of course, referring to the 783 charges of fraud, corruption and racketeering facing the President. Less than 48 hours after the Leader of the Opposition was told to remove those words from the record, the Mail and Guardian published on its front page a picture of Mr. Zuma with the words, accused number one. Now, there's something profoundly wrong in this Parliament when a national newspaper has the freedom to print these words on the front masthead of its paper to scream out from the newsstands of South Africa, yet the presiding officers of this House say that members of Parliament, whose rights of freedom of speech are supposed to be protected and entrenched in the Constitution, cannot say what needs to be said in this House. And yet, and this House continues, and you've seen the best example from that ruling, which I'll get to just now today, that court judgments, constitutional provisions, and the law simply don't matter. Time and time again, the courts have had to step in and remind the presiding officers of their responsibilities to protect the rights of members of this House of freedom of speech. Lakota versus the Speaker. De Lille versus the Speaker. And as recently as last year, the Bozalek judgment. The list goes on, yet time and time again, the presiding officers default to muzzling members and stifling debate. Now, they say the Constitution empowers them to make rules to stifle debate. Well, it's a selective reading of the Constitution that we've got so used to from the ANC. Yes, Parliament can make rules to govern its internal arrangements, but listen here. But this can only be done with due regard to representative and participatory democracy, accountability, transparency, and public involvement. The ruling you've made today, sir, is a suppression of freedom of speech, and we look forward to teaching you another lesson in court later this year.